Good afternoon, everybody. Very happy to be at Techni Summit, as usual, from day one. We've been always here. Very proud to be somebody who really enjoys and tries to help myself. And really great job to all the organizers. In particular, I would say why we're having this session is due to the content team that was really open to every year to add more content, more interesting material that helps the audience. And I believe that what we're talking about today is the first one that we do, and I hope it's not the last. I hope it continues as something in every event that needs to be added to the content, which is lessons learned. We have been in 10 years of entrepreneurship, I would say, in Egypt. We've had thousands of startups, mixed bag of success, failure, zombies, everything. We've had all of that, but we really lack a sense of understanding why the good ones succeeded, why the zombies are zombies, and why the bad ones are failing. And we're giving it a shot here today in terms of really analysis and ability for us to shed some light on two very important startups and understand from that. I would say we need to do it with hundreds of startups, but at least we're starting today. I have a great panel consisting of investors and founders. I have to say a word of caution. Typically, as a moderator, I only moderate, I let people speak, but I was asked to be a speaker as well. So I will be enjoying being both, but I will not abuse my authority as a moderator in a share of voice. So we have from the investor side also a good mix. We have Arzan VC, Laith, and that's a VC. And Tarek and I come more from the angel side. So we have two views on the investors, the earlier stage, the more advanced stage, and so on. And then on the founders side, we have two great founders, and they were willing, I have to confess here, we asked many founders to come and talk, and they refused to talk about their lessons learned. There is still that stigma of not willing to talk out, and I think this is very selfish because the lesson you learned is ownership of the community. You give it to them, and that's how they benefit. So I will not name them, but I hope in the future more founders like the ones we have step up and discuss openly and teach others what they learned and so on. So we have Nader, who established Osta, and he will tell us, and we have Mohamed, who established Bi'ullak. Both were stars at some point in time in terms of their ability and companies. They remain stars as individuals, but they will tell us about the problems of their companies. And I will start with that, and I will take from the extreme left Mohamed and Bi'ullak. And my question, just to lead into the discussion, is when you started Bi'ullak, first, when was that? Why did you start it? And what was your dream on day one? Forget about what happened first. What was your dream on day one, and why you started, and when was that?
Sure. Bi'ullak was started back in 2010 as a BlackBerry application and a mobile website. We got in the first day more than 5,000 registered users, only by word of mouth. The insight behind Bi'ullak before starting was the traffic is a huge pain in Cairo, and people were communicating one-to-one. And the insight was, instead of having the information only between the people who know each other and communicate over the phone, why not they can share it on an app, and all the people can learn about the different traffic conditions, and they can save lots of time on the road. So this is regarding the business side. The business side was traffic is a daily pain, so it will be used daily if succeeded, and this will lead to a successful business. This was and a very useful business also to the people. So this was my hope when we started بيقول لك.
Did you have a dream? Was there on day one a dream to be an Elon Musk or a Steve Jobs, or at least a successful company, or to exit? Did you have a dream?
To have a successful company, yes. A successful company in terms of the business and in terms of helping people. This was a dream, but not specific like Elon Musk or specific numbers.
And did you ever think about exits or anything, or on day one you just wanted to execute and see how things go?
Day one, it was just execute and see how things go.
Okay, okay. So I'll switch to the investor side, and maybe Tarek, if he had come with that vision and that proposal and that idea to you in 2011, was it?
2010.
2010.
Yes.
As an angel investor, would you have invested? Would you have been hesitant? Would you have liked to see more from what he just told us? I know you know the rest of the story, but I'm trying to do a flashback so we see how things evolved.
First of all, I'd like to, again, thank the founders for coming. It's really, I really appreciate that, and the team appreciated that you stepped out and sharing your experience, because we all make mistakes. And we need to share them, including myself. In 2010, I would have probably done the mistake of investing. But because I hadn't known then what I know now, and I think, right now we're looking at, founders who are starting where the exit is, and looking at where, maybe your dream is to just have this out, and with the BlackBerries at the day, there weren't many applications, and it was a pain point. It is a pain point until now. But I think right now we're looking at how founders are looking, where are they taking their company, where the exit is, who is the buyer, how much would that be valued at in 5 to 10 years from now? Why is your product better than, now we would say, Google? So these are the things that we would be always challenging, are always challenging the founders to look at before investing.
And Laith, would you have invested, or would you have hesitated or learned more or waited for traction? How would you have?
Yeah, so 2010, I assume you launched, that's day one. I think it would have been very, very early, and looking at it as a VC, it would not qualify just as a criteria, but maybe as an angel, yes, I would have. Depending on what ticket size I would have thought of investing. So there's other variables that will affect my decision. Sounds like a cool idea back then, but back then, I mean, anyone who has been in the States would have started noticing that Google Maps was starting to kill Garmin devices. And, so eventually coming to all these other features. And to me, this would have sounded like a feature, more, not necessarily a company. So maybe not as a VC, but as an entrepreneur myself, I would have probably been excited. Sounds exciting. I know that I've used Waze back in the day, and it was a really cool idea. Just chasing that piece of candy. They used to give you a piece of candy for you to follow, and then create the map. So بيقول is sort of that, the crowdsourcing. I was very much into user-generated content based on my previous startup back then. But just like my previous startup, Google Maps killed us. We were building a Yelp for the Middle East, and then suddenly, Google is Yelp today. So it's good to always foresee these things.
Thank you. For those who don't recall, بيقول لك was in a competition called Google ابدأ. I was one of the judges until the very end. We had thousands of applicants, and they won that award out of all several thousand actually applicants back in 2012. So it was really one of the star companies because it was innovative at that time to use the momentum that happened, and that's why probably as angel investors a lot of people would have been excited. But of course, when I was judging, actually, I gave them my vote to win, but I remember sitting with them after and saying, be careful what Google will do. I still remember very well. And that is something that you need to foresee. Anyway, let's move on. I think the story will continue. That's just the start, but we'll do the same thing with Nader and Osta. When did you start Osta? Why did you start it? And what was your dream?
طبعا مبدئيا انا بس عايز اقول ان السيشن دي يعني بحس انها بتفكرني بحاجات قصة اكتر حاجه انا حبيت اشتغلتها في حياتي يعني عشان الناس تبقى عارفه هي ممكن تكون تجربه ما نجحتش او ما عدتش بس لغايه النهارده عمري ما انبسطت في بزنس زي اوستا. I started to think and plan for Osta in 2015. Mid 2015, Uber and Careem were not in the market. They were preparing to enter the market, but they were not operating. I started to build the first ride-hailing Egyptian application to be built by Egyptian and managed by Egyptian. We know the market, we know the operations, we know the drivers, we know the pain points and everything. I have good technical knowledge that I can use with my team to build the application. I can build a great operations team. I have been working in fast-moving consumer goods for 9 years, so I know how to run big operations, drivers, training, everything. And it was for me a great opportunity. And I came in a time there was no Uber and Careem, so I know how to make it, and I also know how to manage it better than their management. Yani even in the Egyptian market, I know the market very well. So I know how to compete with them, I know how to beat them, I know how to gain great market share. And I was not afraid from their huge size, and we did actually. We launched in the same time by March 2016, and everybody was talking about Osta, Careem and Uber, like in the media and with the government, everything. The ride hailing in Egypt is Uber, Careem and Osta. So we're very successful at a certain point in time, but this is the beginning of our story.
And your dream was what? To compete with them or to sell to them like Careem did later? Or what? Or you didn't have a dream like Mohamed?
Well, actually, Careem, they offered to acqui-hire us, but we rejected this offer. And our dream was to go big, very big, and to exit through an IPO and to be a big, a market leader in this space in Egypt and the region. This was how I was thinking about.
Okay. I'll start with myself this time because it just happened. I was an investor with Nader in a different company called Jobzella. So we knew each other. So the barrier of knowing each other and as a founder was already passed and the trust and so on. So when he came to me with Osta, the question was not about the individual anymore, but was about the company. And I refused to
I remember what you said, by the way. You said
I refused to invest with Nader in that case, although we were successful investing in Jobzella and so on. But I refused because the point of difference here is I could see what giants can do. Same like we were just discussing, Google and بيقولك, and this is a lesson learned. I mean, there are giants there. They may be dormant for a while. They may not be attacking you from day one. But when the market opens up, the giants wake up. And guess what? Once the giants wake up, if you're not ready, you're a piece of, dead meat. So I told him, I mean, Uber, with the amount of money they raised, they can dump prices for 2 years. Do you have the financial ability to run for 2 years with extreme losses? And I don't see it. And I'm an angel. I'll give you X amount of money. No matter how big my check will be, it will take you 2 months. It will take you 3 months. It will not last too long. Even a simple Series A back then was $1 million. What's $1 million against a company that back then had already raised $6 billion?
Actually, we raised $1.25 million.
Yes, I know, but I advise you not to raise, actually, because I knew this money will go down. And it did. But anyway, I'm not here to say I knew it, but I'm just saying if I go back, I would not invest not because of you, not because ride-hailing is not a good idea. Actually, the only way out back then when we discussed was leave them to play in Cairo. They had started in Cairo, and go and conquer the rest faster, such that they will acquire you very fast. You can turn around in a year or two by being the only one in Mansoura and Tanta and so on. He said the business is in Cairo.
We did.
Yeah,
we-
but you
within 1 year,
resisted a little bit.
within 1 year, we have been operating in 14 cities, and we had 10,000 drivers and around 450,000 customers. So we did. But actually, also it comes with an expense. Like you have to spend a lot of money to cover 14 cities and give guaranteed hourly rate, bonuses for the drivers, free rides for the riders. But it was also not easy for us to maintain this expansion plan because
No,
we
but
didn't
I
have
think
enough money.
you went head to head in Cairo. I think that was a big
Yes, we
mistake
did.
because
We did.
that drained a lot of your money.
Yes.
As opposed to going to a city where they are not even functional, where you didn't have to burn as much money. But
Yes,
anyway,
correct.
that's history, but it's important. And I would like if any of my other two investors here to comment on that. Would they have invested? Do they agree that there was a chance, or do they think there was no chance timing-wise? We all know startups are about timing. That's another thing we need to learn. But anyway, any comments?
For me, ride-hailing was always very challenging, specifically in Egypt. It's a pain point, which is actually, the first thing that we ask, what problem that you're solving to any founder? And it is a problem. It's very much needed. But the unit economics and the competition and Cairo being a big city is definitely something that has drained all your money. I think maybe at the time focusing on less cities and out of Cairo would have been something that some of our founders are actually doing right now in different industries, trying to win market share, quick wins and easy wins, and grow fast so that the big players can acquire them. One of the things, maybe on a separate note, that sometimes, I just clicked the word feature that you said earlier. Some companies are building features, and these features are being sold. So, this company called SwiftKey that had a keyboard on Android sold this small keyboard software to Microsoft for $250 million. And this is a great exit. This is actually the sweet spot for exits that are easy, and a lot of founders can look for that. And a lot of also big companies can easily acquire startups at that stage. So ride-hailing for me would have been a no because of the constraints around it.
And Laith, why do you think Usta failed or didn't make it to the end while Karim did?
So we did invest in Karim. So we've been investing since 2015, and one of our very early deals was Karim. At the time, I think anyone looked at Karim and decided to invest, the number one criteria, of course aside from the basics, but the number one criteria is, will they be able to continue to fundraise the amounts they need? The ride-hailing game is a money-burning game. It's who can keep burning money longer. And even Karim, at a certain scale, if they didn't sell to Uber, they probably would not have been able to raise, because it takes a long time to build that sort of company. Now we see what happens with the global economic waves, and as soon as a down wave hits, a company like Karim cannot breathe in that atmosphere. Not because it's a bad company or badly managed, or they don't get the local market, or they don't speak the language, or all these things, or it's because they cannot find the investors who are willing in that environment to take money out of real estate and out of bonds and put it in Karim. And I disagree that you guys understood the local market better than Karim, because Karim hired locals wherever they went. And also, they were brilliant at learning the local. The guys were not Arab, Middle Eastern, okay? And they really created a culture that drivers felt at home in. Captains, they invented the word captain, and this resonated with people as opposed to driver, chauffeur, So we give them credit for that. And company at that scale, at Kareem's scale, cannot scale with foreigners, of course. So sometimes as a founder, you have to sit and be truthful with yourself. You know, am I looking at my competitor, in a fair lens? Just be fair to them, respect them. Look at what they've done, respect what they've done, as opposed to I want to find ways to argue why I'm better and why I can beat them. And I think if you do look at them in that lens, maybe you would have taken an acqui-hire deal and maybe you would have made 5, 6, 7, 8 million as opposed to 500 million. I'm not saying, of course, hindsight is 2020, but I hear this from a lot of founders when looking at the giants and looking at the David versus Goliath story. It's very nice, but what about all the other in-betweens who did great things and who joined forces and who and remember all the people who died along the way and did nothing. So there's a lot of other like small things, like for example, like winning awards means nothing. Did Kareem win awards? No. Did Facebook win awards? No. Did Twitter win awards? No. Did Tesla win awards? Did Elon Musk ever win an award? No. So, for example, any company that wins awards, I take marks off for that. Why? It's not because I hate awards. Yes, I hate awards, but it's because you wake up in a day and you look for achievements, okay? And you have this, meter capacity bottle that you want to fill with achievements to feed you and keep you alive for the next month or two, keep you excited and your team. If you fill it with awards, then you're not filling it with other things. So these are some of the, points, and I don't want to take too much time.
No, that's very useful. That's why we're here. I think these are key things to take home for those founders or entrepreneurs. You hear it. I mean, you can compete once for the joy of it, but if your goal is to win awards, I fully agree with you. That deviates from the business sense. I also take home a very important, and I add to it, you said respect your competition. I add to it what Andy Grove once said, be paranoid about competition. So even more than respect, be paranoid. They are here to kill you. That's your attitude towards competition. So that's also something you need to know.
I'll just add one point that I wanted to say, but I forgot. When we talk about investing in companies, we look for barriers to entry. That's kind of like people memorize that. But what's your barrier? What's your barrier? There are some models where the barrier to entry is money, is fundraising. It can be a barrier to entry, how much you can raise and how fast you can raise. It can be a function of looking at the founder and thinking he has a big enough network of deep-pocketed people who will give him money, and that's enough. And especially in a model or a product like ride-hailing, there's no rocket science in it. Maybe there was back then when things, you had to build everything, but there's really no rocket science in it. So this is also one point.
Sure. So look for differentiators all the time. I'll go back to Mohamed.
May I add one thing
Sure.
also regarding Kareem, because also the Kareem team were very responsive to the market needs. I mean, they had cash before Uber, and our market responded to cash much more better than credit cards. They launched the Kareem bikes before Uber, and they launched it in Alexandria. And I remember, sitting with the team, and they said Alexandria logistically is easier to launch new products in because it's a smaller market, and then we can learn from our mistakes and then go to Cairo. And I think those, the two things I remember that they did brilliantly, and some things they tweaked and some things they doubled down on.
Okay. Let's move on because I have still to continue the story. It's okay?
Okay.
So Mohamed, let's move forward with your story. We know how you started, what your dream was. How did things go operationally, and at what point did you start feeling it's not going very well?
Okay. بيقول was founded in October 2010. However, we joined as full-time along with two other co-founders in the start of 2012, and we got sponsorship deals from major companies like Vodafone, Coca-Cola, Shell, and others. and things were growing in terms of user and in terms of revenue. One of the things that helped us in this was adapting to the different conditions in Egypt. Like when there is a gas crisis, we introduced features that allows the user to know where the gas stations that are crowded, and others regarding when the revolution happened, status whereby users can avoid any dangerous roads. These things added to the brand equity, to the loyalty of the user base, and also helped in terms of sponsors wanting to sponsor Biola. The challenge was the sponsors' needs and the needs of the user were not in the same line. So we had to make sponsors happy because they are the main source of revenue, and at the same time we have to adapt to the user needs. This slowed us down with the limited resources that we have. However, we were growing and we reached the peak in terms of user base by 2013, having monthly active users of about 180,000 users. So this was regarding the major mistake, I believe, is the business model of sponsorship is not healthy at all, because it's not scalable and it's not aligning the users with the core offering that we are providing. The challenge started in the end of 2015 when Google traffic entered the market. Prior to that, we focused on expanding and taking Biollak global. We introduced a global brand called Y-Traffic, and we had a partnership with Uber to help us in getting traffic data in Egypt and KSA, with the plan to also have it in other countries. We soft launched in KSA by end of 2015. It was not an easy launch, and we got some traction, but it wasn't enough, and it was far below the success we got in Egypt. The market there had Google there, and which so people were having other sources of traffic. And this also having two brands and dividing our resources between two products also negatively affected the Biollak product in Egypt. So when Google launched in Egypt by the end of 2015, the product had actually, there was technical debt that we were not managing effectively, and we discovered it actually after we had some senior team member leaving after 3.5 years. So he was able to manage delivering, but when he left, and new team members joined, yes, we discovered we had outdated technology, and we needed major changes in the back end and the front end. Along with at the same time, we needed to be very fast in adapting to Google and the traffic in Cairo. So we decided to move and focus on the Egyptian market. However, this background that I gave made us not as fast as needed to adapt. And also the sponsors and the marketing managers, although we were not affected in terms of users once Google launched, but we were affected in terms of sponsors, because sponsors, they had some subjective judgment. If the brand manager or the marketing manager is using Google, he might not be interested in sponsoring Biollak because he might think it's not the thing of the future. So we had all these negative forces, and this is the toughest, when the tough times started, actually.
Okay, very interesting. So my question to the investors, had you been an investor, you said you would have possibly invested as an angel, even Laith said as an angel, maybe he could have considered. Had you been an investor in a company that started 2010, and the competition came 5 years later to kill or to start killing them. Yes, so
There was local competition, but we were the major
yes,
player.
no,
Yeah.
that is not what killed you, right?
Yeah.
So would you have advised them in a certain way as an investor? Because the failure or not success, I call it, is not only on a burden on the founders. It's the founders and their investors. Let's be very clear about that. Founders don't fail alone. They fail together with their investors, and you can blame any of the two, but they both carry the burden. So had you been an investor, what would you have advised them, and when? Timing is important. When would you have advised them to do something else? Mind you, having 180,000 followers back then was a big thing. And most of the stars of that era, Super Mama, Iqra'li, they all relied on attracting customers, offering freebies or no subscription model, but attracting advertising and sponsorship. So you were not alone. What would you have advised them, or maybe not?
I think the business model was the core thing about, as you mentioned, relying on sponsorships alone is not sustainable, and you cannot track it properly. You cannot, be very objective about it.
It's not scalable.
It's not scalable at all. And you had great. I was a user of Biolak till very recent, and I loved it. But of course, maybe other features in the applications were interesting that I cannot discuss explicitly.
We know them.
But I think other players in the market right now are using only these features to give you some freemium and then upsell with a subscription for more benefits. I think that might have worked for other specific features on the application, and I think the core thing was the business and revenue model.
So you would have advised them to switch to a subscription-based model?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. How about you, Laith?
Okay, so I relate very well to what you've been through, because my business was content business, user-generated content. We were selling sponsorships and advertising. We had 2 million registered users, and Google killed us, but in a different way. So at the time when I realized that advertising or sponsorships is not really a model that scales, it's very subjective, like you said. Our advertising, head of advertising sales would travel to Dubai, take a bunch of gifts and a few alcohol bottles from the duty free in Dubai, and go meet with the agency heads and give them these gifts, and then get the deals. Not that we got the deals because of that, but I understood that it was very subjective. And I'm a techie, I'm a product guy, and I was looking at the numbers, and I knew it was a matter of time that we were going to hit a wall. So in 2012, I actually left my company for that and other reasons, because I didn't really want to be there when it crashed. And I was right, unfortunately. So what I would have advised is what I told myself is get out, or find something, salvage something from what you have. So look at the user behavior and see, is there another product in there? You have this, it's like a focus group, okay? Is there something else there? In my example, what I saw, we had a chat feature on the app where people could actually interact, and it was quite popular, and people were using it for dating even. So looking at Google killing us, and it's very hard to monetize. Food delivery was really just new. It's transactional models were still very new. Payment online was not really easy. Being a Yelp, but having a social component, I looked at that social component and I thought there could be something there. Maybe going back, I would have maybe tried to create a messenger app out of it. 2 million registered users, that's a good user base to start, to experiment with, but I don't know, I can't say. So in your case, I would have looked at something and tried to pivot and create a product out of it.
So two opinions here, both respected opinions. You never know what would have worked, but Tarek would have tried to modify the same model into a subscription and make it more sustainable. Laith would have pivoted, that's what we call it, basically use what you have to and switch the end product towards something else. Always good to look at these things, task force, together with your investors, and sometimes something pops up out of the blue that's actually even more positive than what you started with. So it's very important, this line of thought, even if there are different opinions like we heard now between two investors. I want to go back to Nader and do the same thing.
Yes.
Fast forward from what you told us how you started, how did things evolve operationally and so on? And when did you start seeing some signs of things not moving too well?
Yeah. Okay, first I would like to comment when we said about the Egyptian thing, it was not about disrespect. If you think back 2015, we were just after the revolution, and after we threw out the Ikhwan and we have the new regime that we have right now, we had a very high sense of patriotic sense. So with this sense, we wanted to prove ourselves as Egyptian entrepreneurs who are building the new Egypt and who are, something like emotion, very emotion. So it was not out of disrespect, it was out of sense of belonging, that this is our market, we are going to build it, and we want it to grow, and we are the expert in this. This is, even if a foreign investor can hire Egyptians, but they don't have the same emotional sense. This is what happened, or how we were thinking about it. When we started the business, we had some negotiations with some investors, and many of them were promising that they are going to support us in Egypt, UAE, and Saudi Arabia. And even there was a fund in UK we were in talk with, and it was very promising for us in terms of funding. The problem is that after we launched our services, we had two big surprises. The first one is that the Saudi fund, the Saudi official fund of the country, they invested $3.5 billion in Uber, and then Crown Prince Walid bin Talal, he invested $500 million in Careem. So this was really the big problem. So all the investors who promised us to be with us and to fund us, they said we cannot compete with those people. Like, this is a turning point. We tried to raise funds and to meet with many investors, but the main problem is that the investors were afraid from, they thought since the Saudi government and the prince, they are investing in this in the region, they are going to kill it. And here we tried many times, but we couldn't do anything about it. We thought about doing something different. Actually, we launched Ostaman. Ostaman was an instant courier and delivery service. So we thought we can use the application of Osta, and we use our technology, and we do other services. And it was successful somehow, but we didn't. Personally, I didn't like the industry of the courier service and delivery service, and we decided to quit because we are losing money anyway. So I will not move on with this. This is what happened to us.
Okay, and question again, as investors, would you have advised Nader to do something else than what he did?
So, when I said respecting, the opposite is not disrespect. So I understand what you're trying to say, but respecting as in like understand what they're doing and appreciate it. Because if be unbiased, that's like remove your bias and you'll really understand. Maybe learning what they're doing. So we ended up investing in Subal actually, which went head with Careem again. Yeah. But so that's an instance where we invested in an upstart that went head to head with Careem. But they went head to head with Careem on something that Careem was just doing really, early. And where we really identified that it was a fundamentally different type of product and company and technology and problem to solve. So that's an example. So maybe pivoting in your case as well would have been, you had the app, you tried delivery. You didn't like delivery, that's fair, but maybe think of other pivots. That's what I would advise you is think. You have these registered users and they, you're top of mind, they think, Osta, okay, now what can you put in that app?
Sorry?
I second what Laith is mentioning. In that case, pivoting would be my first go-to option, of course.
Okay. Okay. I would have advised exactly what Nader did, actually, which is fail fast. Sometimes, honestly, it's very important to fail fast because you can pivot, but basically start something completely new and customer base and everything. Might as well open a startup that has a new name, that has a new shape and attracts investors from scratch. Pivoting without substance, enough substance, I would say, is sometimes not the right thing. And back to the issue, which I see as a common mistake for people to learn from, is not to be too emotional. You described it very emotionally. You love to be an Egyptian company. That's too much emotion. You know, a company is a company. Success is success. There is no nationality for success. You hated the delivery. That should not have affected your decision. If delivery was good, you would do it. If it's not good, you don't do it. But whether you emotionally love something or hate it and so on, I think passion and emotions are overrated. We all need to be very objective about startups. That's a lesson to a lot of young entrepreneurs. They take it too emotionally. And that brings me to the last part, which is the decision to close or not to continue. It sometimes takes years, sometimes takes a moment. When and how both of you did that decision and what was on your mind then?
Well, actually, يعني بيقول لك undergone a major downsizing back in 2018. It is still operating till today, and it has it can reach 60,000 monthly users. But يعني I would like to comment on the point of pivoting or starting a new company. On the personal level, we were like 6 co-founders, and without a shared vision, which made on the personal level, each one of us had his own different vision towards his personal goals.
From the beginning or after the crisis?
Not after the crisis, but I would say from the beginning, we had a shared vision, a shared short-term vision on the product. And there was synergies among the team members, and this helped a lot in the initial success. However, there was no shared long-term vision. Like, shall we focus on the Egyptian market and introduce other things, or focus on the global, and like we did, and others? When the crisis happened, there was not enough substance in the company, if I may say, to make us feel, because 6 co-founders is too much, I would say. I would advise 2 to 3 founders is better. And this helped, I made the personal level, each of us focused on his own thing, and the company became like a side activity and operating on a very small scale.
Everybody lost interest at some point.
Yes.
How long did it take from 2018 until you?
It is mainly in 2018 where the major downsizing happened.
Okay. And Nader?
معلش بقى، يعني انا عندي اختلاف في حته صغيره كده. يعني الباشن مهم للفاوندرز. يعني ممكن فكره ان انت ده بزنس وخليك تطبق العمل عليك وكده يمشي على موظف، يمشي على انفستور بيحط فلوس وخلاص. الفاوندرز they have to be very passionate about what they are doing. يعني انا بعمل كل ده اصعب من ان انا ابقى موظف. يعني ان انا ابقى انتربرينور اصعب بكتير، وبستحمل ده عشان بعمل حاجه بحبها. فلو انا ما بحبهاش مش هعملها، بغض النظر عن مكاسبها الفظيعه. لان انا ممكن اشتغل موظف في شركه كبيره اقبض اكتر بكتير من انا باخده من الستارت اب بتاعتي، بس انا عايز اخد قليل واعمل اللي بحبه. فانا مختلف جدا في دي. انا لو عملت بزنس،
لا, I think this is misunderstood. You have to love what you're doing and be passionate about it, but don't use emotion and passion in judging the business. That's what I meant.
ما قدرتش يعني
انت you couldn't isolate them.
in my case لما كان عندي دريم معين على قصه وفيجن معينه وكده، لما حولناها لقسطة مان، ولقيت نفسي داخل في ان انا كومبيت مع بوسطة مثلا، مش مع اوبر وكريم وارمكس والناس دي، الفيل ده مش بتاعي، فما قدرتش اكمل يعني، ما عرفتش، ما قدرتش ومش هقدر غالبا. يعني اي بزنس هعمله مش هحبه مش هكمله، يعني طبيعتي كده. بس زي ما قلت لحضرتك، انت كلمتك مظبوطه، فكره ان انت تو فيل فاست. طبعا تو فيل فاست، احنا عندنا فريق كبير، عندنا سواقين، عندنا عملاء، كلها فلوس كتيره جدا، وبعدين بقى في دات على الشركه مبلغ كبير، ومفيش انفستمنت، وغالبا مش هيبقى في انفستمنت. واكشلي انا برضه عشان احافظ على شكلي، فكان في مبلغ معين على الشركه، خدت لون علشان خاطر ادفع الفلوس على الشركه، وقفلتها فورا وخلاص يعني، علشان خاطر بس يعني في حقوق سواقين وحقوق ناس، فكان لازم ياخدوها.
So you made the call.
طبعا.
Did you go back to your investors and ask their opinion or
لا خلاص، هم تخلوا عننا اكشلي، يعني احنا كنا يعني الانفسترز اللي كانوا معانا خلاص قالوا مش هيكملوا الراوند خلاص ومفيش امل، فخلاص طب في يا جماعه فلوس على للشركه، على السواقين وكده، قال لك لا مش مالناش دعوه خلاص. رحت خدت لون، دفعت ما كانش مبلغ كبير ساعتها، كان يمكن مليون جنيه او حاجه، خدت قرض بيهم دفعتهم وخلاص، يعني قفلنا الشركه يعني الموضوع ده.
طيب we don't have much time but very quickly Tarek and Laith, in a situation like that a founder comes to you and says I'm closing the company, how would you behave, or what would your reaction be, or what would you try to do as an investor?
Very quickly, if there is no way to pivot and we've tried everything, I do respect being passionate about what you're doing and loving it and getting attached to it, but at a certain point, the same thing that you're trading, you put a stop loss and you have to just, put a stop loss, and from the beginning, where is your stop loss? This is where I'm taking my losses and starting something new.
Excellent. Laith?
And yeah, we've had actually companies that came to us, said we're closing and we're okay with that. That's VC. Maybe angel investors would feel like, oh, it's my money. It's like, and it's amounts that it matters to them in terms of percentage of their wealth. But this is the job of a VC. Never be afraid to tell your VC that you're shutting down. But what we tell them is, okay, like, don't ask us for money now. Because a lot of people, they end up like they need to shut down, but they need $1 million to shut down. That's a situation where it's impossible for us to help. So yeah, hopefully you shut down before you need $1 million to shut down.
ده اللي حصل، او السجن بقى، صاحب الشركه وعليك فلوس.
But I think we came to the end of the time, but I think one very important lesson learned, which we don't have much time to discuss, is that the two of them are alive. They are both here. They are sitting on a stage at Technis Summit. They are superstars telling their stories. Please give both of them a hand. And the best entrepreneurs for me as an investor are the ones who have had cases like that, because when they come the next time, they have learned so much from the first and second time and third time to the level that makes me confident that they will be better investors, better founders over time. So I think don't be shy. Sorry for my English, but shit happens, okay? Companies do fail, and you learn and you survive and you do the next thing. So I thank again all my participants. I thank Technis Summit for giving us the opportunity to have a discussion like this. I hope we have more and more. I think there are hundreds of cases to analyze, like we did with two of them today, to learn more from them and give back to the next generation who's starting now, not to do another Osta or another Bi'ullak, but do a successful Bi'ullak or a successful Osta. There are things that could have been done now in hindsight, and you need to learn about them. Thank you all very much for your patience and for attending.